My attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. This one has quite a few levels to it. It's pretty remarkable. But essentially, it is more so about recognizing, as far as at first, that what you are thinking is always going to be harming you first. So this is in the realm of judge and be judged. And that quite literally means it takes one to know one. And this goes really into many, many depths of this whole experience about the world. And it really quite literally peoples our world. So in this understanding that as we see someone else in a way that we might judge them as in a negative fashion, is usually what we think of, that we first have to be thinking this. Right? Makes sense, right? We think, oh man, they're so ugly. And we're thinking to ourselves how they're so ugly. Yes, we think it's out there and it's projected out there, but in this sense that we are actually experiencing the fact that we believe we can be ugly. We believe we can be attacked in that same fashion. So this goes in every sort of way. Essentially, you're not even a body. You can't attack, and you can't even see anybody else's bodies, but you're insisting that you are. So you're actually seeing this whole experience. Now that's a little more advanced, but this sense of what you are doing here is you're judging others and you're hurting yourself in the same way that you, as you're hating them and you're swearing up a storm to them and all focus on them, it all is hurting up here. You're negative Nancy in your mind, negative, hurting yourself, feeling down because you're negative. Oh, pain. Oh, why am I so in pain? Those sweet son of a beep, piece of beep. I hate these beep, 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 beep. Nobody else is laughing, so I gotta laugh too. Okay. But in this experience about this, essentially it comes down to really recognizing, honestly, that you can be attacked because you think you're a body, and therefore you can attack and be attacked. Literally, physically, by bodies. Now, it's a little harder to get out of the sense of what bodies are talking about, but really, you can't even attack because you're not a body and no one else is a body. You're an eternal essence. So if that's too much for you, take it in the fashion that you first have to think you're talking about a body in order to try and hurt another body or try and judge another body. And so as we're looking at this lesson and you're really getting serious about, I am concerned about blank and I am afraid blank will happen. And that thought is an attack thought upon myself. This is really what we want to be recognizing. That this is, it takes one to know one. Meaning if I'm always going to think this person's lazy over here, you're such a lazy piece of crap, you lazy piece of crap. And you're probably working really hard. In fact, you're probably working so hard, you're trying to prove to yourself that you're not lazy. In fact, you might be afraid of being lazy, that you put yourself to work so hard all the time that you're just running from being lazy. Notice how you actually think you're lazy, and therefore you think this other person's lazy? Yeah, you might not actually be lazy, but you think you are lazy. So you can actually see this in every sort of fashion. When people are being controlling and you don't want them to be controlling, right? What happens? I don't want you to control me. You can't tell me what to do. An authority battle can only be between two controlling people. Okay? You have to be controlling to tell someone else not to be controlling. Now, I'm not telling you to be submissive. I'm not telling you to be lazy. I'm not telling you any of this, condoning or condemning any sort of activity. I'm just saying, helping you to recognize that it takes one to know one, literally. Now, if you had no sort of concept of laziness, no sort of ideas in which, negative aversions to laziness, and you see a person that would be defined as what? I mean, someone else might refer to them as lazy, but you don't even know what lazy is. Would you refer to them as lazy? You can't. You don't know what it is. Just like controlling. Some people don't even know they're in, say, abusive relationships until somebody else tells them, hey, this is an abusive relationship. This is not healthy, right? And then they're like, oh, what? Oh, you mean there's better out there? Right? So then they see it. Then they open their eyes to it, right? And as if maybe they were okay with it. It makes no difference. I'm not condoning or condemning anything. I'm just saying, they didn't know it was abusive. They weren't feeling abused until they were told they were. And it happens all the time. And this is with so many different things. So education, yes, is helpful, but it's also in a way that we are seeing only ourselves everywhere. So we want to recognize that this is the mind projected outward. Now that is something that I referred to at the beginning here, that your attack thoughts will be projected outward. And so you actually think you're dealing with somebody else that has it, somebody else that is lazy. And you just had a thought about lazy. You think there's a difference between your thoughts and the laziness out there. But how do you know there's laziness out there? You have your sensory perceptions that are going through your brain that you process it through. Definitions of laziness. You have to process it through, filtering through your brain, right? It has to go through these sensory perceptions. How do you know what you're looking at? All you're looking at is the way in which you process your sensory perceptions. You can't see anybody outside of processing it in the way your brain processes it. You can't know what's out there, what's going on out there in any sort of way. You only see your ideas, your definitions, your shapes, your forms. This is a fact. If you'd had no brain to filter it, you would be, I don't know, brain dead, maybe empty head dead, airhead. You wouldn't have a clue. You wouldn't see anything because your brain's not processing. You wouldn't feel anything. Your brain's not receiving any information, right? So it's pretty interesting when you get really in depth about this, because essentially, and I teach in a lot of my other courses, is that you quite literally are only experiencing the world in decisions you have made. It's one thing to think about this as philosophy, completely different to actually take this to heart and really experience an alternate reality from it. Remember, that's what this course is about. It's about recognizing this alternate reality, say, the spiritual universe. If you've forgotten and you started thinking this was all psychological, yes, it is in a psychological approach, but spirituality is about the spiritual universe, okay? So it's about recognizing that to break the barriers that are keeping you from the awareness of love's presence. Love's presence is the spiritual universe, okay? It is the relationship between the Father and the Son. Details for another time, okay? But it's the spiritual universe. And you're attempting to discover it by changing your mind, breaking out of your box that you think you understand it, but you really have no idea. You have no idea. And you've been attacking yourself this whole time about it all. Your world, all a big attack. All a big attack.